Bryce, of course, Director of the Integrity Institute. Morning, Bryce. How are you?
Well, Rena, Andrew, I'm good. It's not a very nice day here in Wellington, I'm afraid. It's very cold, windy, wet.
Autumn's
It's,
kicked in
yeah,
with a vengeance.
yeah,
Yeah,
indeed.
well, perhaps it's appropriate that it is wet in Wellington today because both of the issues that we're talking about involve Wellington and various levels of wetness. Let's start with the problems with the water system. This is a infrastructure nightmare. Underground pipes in a major city that's prone to shaking occasionally.
Yes, I mean it's a bit of a problem all around the country about how do we afford to pay for our our drinking water, our storm water, and our sewage
Yep,
systems. And so Wellington's not entirely unique in this regard, but there are some more severe problems here than elsewhere.
yep.
And so in the city we have a water organization called Wellington Water, and it's owned by all the local authorities. So, of course, we don't have a super city like in Auckland, but if you kind of imagine all the different local governments authorities from the Wairarapa through to Paeroa, the Hutt,
Yep.
and Wellington Central, they've all combined, and they have this Wellington Water that looks after the pipes and things for everywhere, and hasn't been doing a very good job. You might have seen some of the stories over the last couple of years, and there's been a bit of digging into why not.
Yep.
And so a couple of reports came out this week about the way Wellington Water's managed and the way they essentially contract out the work that needs to be done in terms of laying new pipes, fixing the leaks, and so forth. And they use a lot of private companies, not that uncommon, but the way that the work is distributed to those contractors has been found to be very loose, should we say?
Wow. Yep.
And so they have it. There's a panel on Wellington Water that decides which leaks to allocate to which firms,
Hmm.
what jobs, and it's actually run by the contractors.
Wow.
So it's a bit of a flawed model. And so it's been costing more and more each year. And this report said in some cases, Wellingtonians are paying three times what other local authorities are paying for fixing pipes and stuff. And there's a sense of people sort of clipping the ticket
Yep.
in many different places, and no one having any sort of accountability, no great models for checking that there's no wastage or duplication, or that the ratepayers aren't being ripped off. And so this really has been a bit of a thunderbolt for Wellingtonians who have been unhappy about this arrangement for a while, but are finally seeing in this report that, well, there's actually something wrong.
Yeah.
This isn't just due to earthquakes or the topography of Wellington. There's something rotten in the state of the agency.
Yep.
And so it's not necessarily saying that this thing happens in other parts of the country, but it is a bit of a wake-up call if because we've got a lot of infrastructure that we need to modernize and fix up, from school classrooms through to bridges and roads and hospitals, and all sorts of things throughout the country. And there's a bit of a sense, I think, growing that maybe New Zealand hasn't really got a very good way of managing all that infrastructure, and it's going to cost billions. Let's make sure it's not just going to contractors who are creaming it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, of course, the previous government said, hey, Three Waters, this will fix all of the water woes of councils all over New Zealand. Now, that idea has been thrown out with the proverbial bathwater. However, not that much of a key plan in place, and it seems that I suppose with the removal of Three Waters, yes, there was a central government plan, but a lot of it is coming down to local levels. The water infrastructure remains a local government problem rather than a central government problem, and a problem which is too big to fix at a local level.
Yeah, so a big part of the last government's Three Waters reforms was this idea of trying to amalgamate some of the different authorities to bring some savings. Wellington Water had already done that to a large extent,
Yep.
and the new government, yes, have scrapped the three waters, but they're also trying to create some more amalgamation. I guess the worry is that regardless of whether it's the Labour model, national model, or the current model, it's still using these contractors,
Yep.
and they may not have really figured out how to make sure the contractors aren't ripping off the public by just, at the moment, it's really just here's our bank account,
Yep.
here's our pot of money. You know, help yourself and fix up some of these things, and we'll trust you to do it.
And certainly the evidence of things being fixed up. I mean, there's more water features in central Wellington streets than just the Cuba Street bucket fountain, for example, and some of them quite spectacular. And a lot of the purified water that should be available for people to drink is just soaking into the ground and adding to the problem, I understand.
Look, it is. And so it makes Wellingtonians angry. And so there's some calls at the moment for the chair of Wellington Water, Nick Leggett, to resign.
Yep.
And so he's having to defend himself and his agency. And I guess there's a sense that maybe he would be, I think he calls himself, he might be the sacrificial lamb. You'll know the metaphor well.
Yep.
And yeah, and is that enough? But there's a lot of anger, feeling that there needs to be accountability. Is this just one more report where things say, oh, well, the ratepayers, the public haven't got a good deal, but we'll come up with some better, solutions.
Just wanted to add to your metaphor there, he would be the sacrificial legative lamb.
And that's very good
in that regard. Now, the point is, I suppose, that it's local body elections this year, and Tory Whanau, the Wellington mayor's put her hand up and says, I want to stand again. Now, it's not just the issue of Wellington Water that isn't on her side, but is this the type of thing that the Wellington ratepayers are likely to revolt on and say, look, Wellington Water, yes, there's some problems within that system, but they're likely to take it out on the local council and the mayor as well?
I think so. I mean, as I said, Wellington Water does the infrastructure for all the different councils. Wellington City Council is just one of those. But I think you're absolutely right. And the Wellington City councillors and the mayor likes to say, oh, it's nothing to do with us. We have this council-controlled organisation that does this. It's separated out. And I think the same thing happens in other places like Auckland. The politicians say it's not our business.
Yep.
We're not accountable. But in fact, they are to a large extent. They're still the ones that ultimately give the instructions to these council-controlled organisations. They're supposed to be monitoring them. I think the Wellington City Council, and especially the mayor, have been missing in action in this.
Yep.
So they will have to take some of the hits on this. And Tory Whanau, I mean, she's already got a lot of problems apart from this. I think it does add to a sense of her impending doom, and maybe for a lot of other councillors as well. This really is kind of heating up as something that's angering ratepayers.
Well, hey, certainly an interesting mess. And as you say, this is an example of something which is replicated in different parts of the country as councils and local and national government look at having to pay the bill on some significant infrastructure improvements or maintenance. Bryce, thank you for your insight. As always, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Andrew.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.